Two guys with a failed cricket bar company just beat Kellogg's and General Mills. No distribution, no brand. Just a $9 pink box of cereal, double what Kellogg's charges, and a line of customers willing to pay it. Today, I'm breaking down the 5 exact moves they used and how you can steal every one of them for your e-commerce brand. Let's talk about the numbers behind the brand here. They managed to raise over $100 million, generate 1 million plus customers. This is D2C. They managed to scale to 6,800 plus retail store, and they charge about $9 per box, which is twice the average market here. When you think about the cereal market, it's actually a fortress. You have giants that have been there for over a century. You have Kellogg's, for example, 100 plus years, General Mills, and you have Post 100 plus years. And the challengers are two guys. They had a failed cricket bar company before, and then they decided to found Magic Spoon. So at that point, they had zero shelf space, zero brand equity, and zero distribution network. Yet they managed to build a 150 million plus brand in under 5 years, which is quite impressive. Let's talk about the 5 moves that you can steal and implement in your brand today. The first one is the positioning gap. You have two ends of the spectrum. The first one is fun but unhealthy. You have your Fruit Loops, Lucky Charms, Cocoa Puffs, 10 to 12 grams of sugar, 1 to 3 grams of protein, beloved but guilt-inducing. And there is a lot of heat about these products now, especially as more people discover that they are not very healthy for you. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have healthy but boring. And Magic Spoon managed to find the sweet spots. So they still are healthy, but also very fun. And I would argue that the emotion that they tapped in to be able to scale this fast is nostalgia. A lot of their customers are millennials who grew up eating cereals. So their positioning taps into that feeling and try to bring people back. So for Magic Spoon, you have 0 grams of sugar, 13 grams of protein, tastes like childhood, the gap nobody else filled. Let's talk about what I think is the most important element that helped them scale very fast, which is their branding. The difference, as I mentioned before, for the typical health cereal, brown cardboard, clinical ingredients list, neutral photography, the message is this is good for you. But for Magic Spoon, they have these bright, saturated colors. They have these cartoon mascots, playful flavor names, and the message is this is fun for you. So through this, they managed to gather 80,000 plus 5-star reviews, which is quite incredible. So why their branding works? The first one is nostalgia. So you have Saturday morning cartoons, triggers emotional buying that bypasses the $9 price objection entirely. So you're not buying cereal here, you're buying a feeling. A lot of e-com brands, they try to focus on features when they don't realize that the majority of your customers, they actually do not care that much about features. They care about how those features make them feel, or how they translate to desired outcomes, or how they align with their identity. So that's the big unlock for a lot of e-com brands. The second one is going to be scroll stopping. You have these bright colors and cartoon mascots. They stand out in any feed or store aisles as well. The third one is going to be shareability, and this is how they managed to gather 80,000 plus 5-star reviews, which is quite impressive. So let's talk about the Underpriced Channel. While everyone was heavily focusing on Facebook ads, they decided to go the podcast route. The advantage here is that they had a 10% higher customer lifetime value from podcasts compared to other channels. And they were sponsors of some of the top podcasts out there, like Joe Rogan, Tim Ferriss, Diary of a CEO, Huberman, etc. So this is how they managed to reach 1 million customers. Why podcasts outperformed other channels? The first one is the referral feel. So host-read ads feel like personal recommendations and not interruptions. This is a little bit different now because a lot of these ad reads that I see on podcasts, they feel very robotic. The second advantage is the right audience. So they were trying to target health-conscious millennials that are heavy podcast listeners. The third one is going to be borrowed trust. And a lot of these fast-scaling brands, they try to shortcut their way to scale by borrowing trust from other influencers or authority figures or institutions. So the fourth one is going to be trackable cost per acquisition. So they were sending these podcast listeners or maybe traffic from their meta ads to unique LPs that had specific language and specific ideal customer profile. So they could track exactly how much revenue each of these podcasts are making, and they could decide the winners that they will invest more in and also the losers that they will be dropping. Let's talk about move number 4, which is D2C as a research lab. And you will notice that a lot of these fast scaling brands now adopt this as a principle. So they try to validate the idea first and gather a lot of data before they start scaling for retail, because that makes it much easier. So let's go through their timeline here of how they went from 0 to 6,800 plus stores. 2009, they launched. 2020 and 2022, they started to build and they managed to get 1 million customers. They had a ton of data that they could present to these retail stores. 2022, they were on target and they managed to raise $85 million in Series B. So this is their first retail partnership. And in 2023, they managed to scale to 6,800 plus retail stores in just 6 months. And you will notice that now 70% of their revenue comes from retail when only 30% comes from their online store. Let's talk about what 3 years of D2C data gave this brand. So the first one is going to be transaction history, they had the purchase frequency, the average order value, repeat rates across 1 million plus customers. So they already have proof of demand at scale. The second one is geographic heat maps. So they knew exactly which locations got them the most customers in terms of states or cities. So later when they decided to expand to retail, they knew exactly which locations to start with. Third one is going to be flavor preference through the purchase data plus their surveys. So they identified the 3 most popular flavors and they just started with those in retail. So no guesswork here. And the fourth one is going to be the price sensitivity. And I would argue that this was probably the biggest objection that these retail stores had, because it's very difficult to justify double the price compared to Kellogg's or General Mills. However, they already had 1 million plus customers. So they proved the concept. They proved that people are willing to pay $9 per box. So it removed all risk from these retail stores. My favorite part now is the retention machine. This is what we do at Power My Marketing. So many D2C brands from 2019 are completely gone now, and Magic Spoon isn't. And one of the biggest reasons is efficiency. So they basically figured out how to extract as much value as possible from every single visitor they sent from those podcasts or even from their meta ads. So you have the D2C boom of 2019 that created hundreds of brands riding cheap Facebook ads, good old days, and the pandemic tailwinds. However, when the iOS 14 hit and CACs started to increase, CPMs as well, a lot of brands, they weren't able to survive because they had an efficiency problem. Initially, traffic was cheap. However, as you scale, your cost per acquisition is going to go up until you eventually break even, plateau, and then a lot of brands die. I've seen this happen to several brands over the past few years. I also talked to a few brands that were heavily reliant on Facebook at that point. So they put all of their eggs in one basket, and all of a sudden, Facebook decided to ban their account for one reason or another. And next day, they had no brand whatsoever because they haven't invested in other channels. Let's talk about Magic Spoon's retention system. The first one is the subscription default. So they always try to default you into subscription where you can save 10 to 25% off. With subscription, they try to reduce the risk for you as much as possible because people are really wary about subscriptions. So they try to make it clear to their customers that people can pause, skip, or cancel anytime. The second one is their personalization engine. So they have different landing pages for different ideal customer profiles based on ads or even on podcasts. So you have keto shoppers, they see protein stats, moms see family testimonials, etc. So you have the same product, but completely different story, features, and outcomes for each of these ideal customer profiles. And the third one is going to be email and SMS flow, where they have the welcome series that try to push subscription. They have reminders, they have nudges, they have emails that try to prevent churn. So every touch point is basically engineered to get people to place their first order and then get into the subscription. So let's talk about how they are trying to focus on increasing their average order value and also customer lifetime value. So on the left here, they always try to push for the variety 4 or the variety 6 in an attempt to increase the average order value because that will reduce your churn rate and also increase your cash flow. So regarding the churn rate, when you get people to try your product maybe for a couple of months, they are more likely to develop a habit and they are more likely to reorder in the future. The second thing is they try to get people into a subscription to increase their customer lifetime value. So this is what the page defaults on: subscribe and save 20% off. They get a free bowl set with their first subscription order plus some exclusive deals. So they try to incentivize people not only through the discount, but also through offering some extra stuff. And you will notice at the bottom here, they are trying to turbo boost their average order value by getting people to build their own bundle. So the most important ecom metrics, there are only 2 ways to grow an ecom brand. The first one is to get more new customers. And the second one is to get those new customers to spend more money with you. So when you combine these 2 together, then you got a recipe for scale. So the 3 most important metrics that we try to focus on for our clients, the first one is the conversion rate. And a lot of people think of email SMS as just a retention tool, when in fact, it's also an acquisition tool. It will help you convert more of your traffic into first-time customers as well. So in terms of increasing the conversion rate, Magic Spoon uses forms to capture as much traffic as possible so they can nurture it and turn it into first-time customers through the welcome series and the abandonment flows as well. So this is technically converting more of the same traffic that you have at the moment into first-time customers. They also always push for the bundles to increase the average order value, and they try to generate as much revenue as possible from every single customer through increasing their lifetime value by promoting subscriptions, removing friction, and staying top of mind weekly campaigns. So let's talk about their capture mechanism here, which is a pop-up. So they say under to win free free cereal. Then they have some fields here. They have the birthday. They have, do you follow a particular diet? So they can send personalized recommendations to people later. And they have the email field, and then people can click continue to opt in via SMS as well. So this is a decent enough opt-in form. However, from our experience, we typically try to reduce the amount of fields because that will increase friction and will reduce your opt-in rate. The way we typically do it is have a multi-step opt-in. So the first one, we don't even ask for the email. We just ask people to self-identify with a problem or a desired outcome. We call this self-identification. And then once they select something and go to the second screen, that's when we ask them to enter their email address, because now they are more invested and they are more likely to opt in at a higher rate. So in terms of frequency, they send about 12 to 15 emails per month, which is basically an email every other day, which is a decent frequency. In terms of the email format, 5% of the emails they send are basically plain text, and these work incredibly well, especially that they get really good deliverability and engagement as well. But for 90% of the time, they send these graphic, lively emails. And I really like the emails that they send. They are very short, to the point, and they don't beat around the bush. So let's talk about the email types that they send. The first one is new product unlimited edition flavor launches. They send this about 30% of the time, and it's by far the number one email category they have. This doesn't apply to all e-commerce brands. For example, for some of our clients, they only do 2 to 3 big product launches a year. And for those, we have an exact process of how we tease those products and launch them. However, if your brand launches products on a consistent basis, then this type of emails works incredibly well. So in terms of how we launch products for our clients, we typically have a pre-launch sequence where we basically try to build excitement and anticipation, tease the product, and use a lot of curiosity to get people invested and excited. We even highlight some product photography that is completely blurred so people cannot see what the product is. And this just increases curiosity and gets people to invest more. So the second category for Magic Spoon is seasonal or holiday themed emails. They send these about 50% of the time. These are Halloween, Valentine's, Easter, 4th of July, back in school, etc. The third one is going to be product education, use case, or also nostalgia. So this is the emotion that they try to tap in, and they try to educate customers about their products. So we like to use the 4E framework when we create content for our clients. The first E is going to be education. So these work incredibly well. The second E is going to be engage. So this is where you try to keep your subscribers or customers engaged. The third one is going to be entertaining. These are some of my absolute favorite emails because if you can make your customer laugh or smile, they are more likely to buy from you, because we know that people buy from brands they like. And the fourth E is going to be empowerment. So this is where we empower people to make the right choices in their lives through using our products. In terms of the fourth category, which they send 10% of the time, is again, they try to push for that average order value by bundling or building a box. The fifth category is going to be monthly fresh picks curated series. So we like to send this for most of our clients as well. Every month we have a bestseller email from the previous month, or even like every week we have it from the previous week as well, if it's a fashion brand and they launch a lot of new products as well. So this works incredibly well because it reduces decision fatigue. If other customers are buying these products at a higher rate, then they must be good. The sixth category is going to be free gift with purchase. So these are some of my favorites. And the objective here is to try to push people into a subscription or a higher average order value. So when we choose free gifts for our clients, we try to choose something that has a low manufacturing cost for them. So it doesn't cost them a lot of money to manufacture, but it also has a high perceived value in that customers perceive it as high value. So these work incredibly well. AG1 is the most famous example of this. They give you a ton of free premium items when you subscribe to their products. So, and they are much, much better than plain discounts because those only devalue your brand long term. So the seventh category, which they send 7% of the time, is just discounts or promo codes. So this doesn't include BFCM because they send a lot of emails regarding Black Friday during that time. The one thing to keep in mind here is they use a lot of tiered promos as well. So buy more and save more. Again, these are much better than plain discounts because it gets people to spend more money with you. The eighth category is going to be user generated content or reviews or social proof. So these are one of my absolute favorite emails to send. And we have some form of social proof in about 60 to 70% of the emails that we send for our clients in terms of reviews, magazine features, etc. And the ninth category is the subscription or autopilot push, which they send 3% of the time because their checkout already defaults to subscriptions. So there you have it, the 5 main things that helped Magic Spoon scale incredibly fast. And if you're interested in generating 30 to 50% of your total revenue from email SMS, then I'm happy to offer you a free in-depth audit of your program where I show you exactly what's missing, what could be improved, and how much more revenue you'll be able to generate when all of the improvements are implemented. This is 8 to 10 pages of expert recommendations specifically tailored to your brand. So if you're interested in that audit, just click on the link in the description to schedule a quick call with me.